Good evening. This is the Raymond Recycling Committee. I'm Grace Levitt, Chair of the committee, and I'll call the meeting to order. And we are now in session, and I just wanted to do a quick round of introductions. Our Vice Chair is Susan Accardi. Our Secretary is Karen Lockwood. Other members of the committee are Kathy Goslin and Jessica Fay. Also, our select board representative here, Rolf Olson, our town manager, Don Willard, public works director, Nathan White. Sue Look is assisting with us doing this on Zoom. Thank you, Sue, town clerk. And then we have a number of people that will be presenting as well. Have I missed anybody on the committee? Okay. So hold off on the introductions of the people that will be doing the presentations in just a moment, and we'll certainly introduce them as it's time on our agenda to hear from them. And thank you for attending. Before I forget to say thank you to the folks that are coming here to talk about a couple of programs. First order of business is approval of the meeting minutes from November 18th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions, any corrections on minutes? Seeing and hearing none, without objection, we have approved the minutes of November 18th. Is there objection? Seeing and hearing none, the minutes are approved. Thank you. And so we are on to new business. And again, thank you to the folks that are here presenting some information about a couple of things. First, we'll start off with a program called Garbage to Garden. And I believe it's Tyler Frank that had been invited. Thank you. Thank you, Karen, for connecting us with these folks. And Tyler, thank you for being here. And just wanted to hear information about that and see what questions the committee might have for you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Everybody, well, no one can really all answer me at once, but hopefully all of you can hear me well. My computer was not working, so I'm on my phone, but it should be fine. I just don't have a slideshow, but it's not a big deal. I'm going to try to keep it fairly brief and leave time for questions. So I'm Tyler Frank. As I said, I'm a native of North Yarmouth. I live in Wyndham now. I started Garbage to Garden in 2012 when I lived in Portland at the time in a little apartment. And the problem for me at the time, and for many people, whether you live in the city or out in Raymond, is 40%, up to 40% of our waste is organic, and that does include more than you would compost at home, but anything from a living source. And people compost in their backyards. They can't do everything, but they can do a lot. But it's busy lives, and it's cold in the winter, and it works better on a larger community scale. So, there needs to be more convenience to really get the organics out of the waste stream. So when I started, I didn't know if people would really care a lot about composting, but it turns out they did. I started with 12 buckets at a art walk in Portland, and it took off from there, skipping over a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and figuring out some really good systems to make this work. Now, almost 10 years later, we pull 25 tons per day of organics out of the waste stream. We service about 12,000 households in a number of communities, including in Massachusetts. We have a satellite operation down there. I went to Boston College, so that was my foot in the door down in that area. We find that people really love to do this once they start, and we tend to make it easy. Everyone gets a clean bin every week, or other means of kicking the ick factor. We see a 94% retention rate year over year. So people are paying for a service in most cases, and they are a year later still doing it 94% of the time. And most of the 6% are people that move to Colorado or something. So people tend to stick with it. I think that's evidence enough that the value is in the service. We have over 30 staff. We have expanded, it's hard bootstrapping a company, but we're proud to offer 100% healthcare for our staff and other first-class benefits. And while we have built the company on a subscription model, it's starting to turn to where I see more municipal contracts on the horizon. I'm actually currently working on a bid for the city of Boston, which is going to be the first one that is actually going to pay 100% of the subscription cost. And so that's really big if we end up getting that. But in Maine is our primary operation, and we're ready to grow a lot more and add some new communities. Before we get into that, I just want to talk briefly about composting. Everyone knows a little bit about it, but composting is returning organic materials to their natural state. So it's really the true closed loop recycling. It's meat, dairy, bones included, parchment paper, paper towels, anything that was from a living source. It's 100% local. All the food scraps are processed into finished compost, in Gorham or in Auburn, or it's not going out of state or certainly overseas. Less expensive than trash or recycling in terms of tipping fees, and we manage the process of that. We always are, a cost of our service includes the processing. So, if any household that composts tends to pull about 1/3 of a ton out of the, just out of the landfill for incineration, saves the town, say, about 1/3 of a ton per year, which between disposal and a little bit of trucking might be $3 a month. So there is a savings to the town, even if the town's not involved. And it's not just about reducing the incineration and landfill. Methane is released by food waste. Methane is a much more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. CO2 is released also by it, but it's one of the most important things we could do to prevent climate change. Also, it traps the carbon back in the soil. It completes that circle of life. There's only a finite amount of organic matter on the planet, and it can't all end up in landfills, or we won't be able to feed our growing population. And it's kind of a big picture problem, but it produces a valuable, directly usable product that we can give right back to the people who are giving us the food scraps. So there's a lot of benefits to it for the household, for the town, the community, and the environment. And our services essentially are curbside, centralized drop-off, or commercial. And curbside obviously is the most convenient and the most effective in terms of the maximizing diversion. It can be subsidized or not subsidized. It can, we can do every house just like trash, or we can do a subscription model, which is what we most experience. It can include a clean bucket delivered every week and free bags of compost delivered, and pick up your little jar of fats, oils, and grease that goes to Maine Standard Biofuels and gets turned into biodiesel and soap to wash the buckets. And that's how our regular subscription program works. Or in deals with different municipalities, it could just be dumping bins and making a lower cost option to just get people in the door to recycle their food waste. So we're happy to work with towns and tailor that. We have a program in South Portland that's tailored to be less expensive and a bit simpler. Also, centralized drop-offs. That's a no-brainer. You have 1 to 3 places in town. I wish I had a slide for this one, because we put in a nice kiosk with a sign and bright green food scrap totes, and people are free to put stuff in there. It doesn't cost them anything to separate their organics and put them in the food scrap totes. We come by on our commercial route and dump the bins, and the town pays for that, but it's less expensive. You're saving the tons that aren't in the trash, and it's actually going to at least typically break even for the town, if not save some money. So that's effective, and it's a no-brainer. And our commercial route's already in North Windham, so we should really talk about that at a minimum. And we don't actually have centralized drop-offs in Windham, but they have expressed interest in that and curbside. So we're definitely growing in the area. And commercial service, if we're in the area, we can service any type of business, restaurants, summer camps, schools, you name it. We have a lot of experience with implementing new diversion programs and, making it easy for students or employees to know what to do and set up a system that's convenient. So expanding commercial service naturally goes hand in hand with a centralized drop-off. So I think that quickly gives you a good overview of our programs and what we can offer, and I'm happy to go into more detail if anyone has any specific questions.
So the committee, any questions? Yes, Jessica.
Thanks, Grace. Nice to see you, Tyler. Thanks for this amazing information. And I've heard a little bit about garbage to garden in other contexts. And I think there was a pilot program, yes, in South Portland that started this whole thing. Do you currently have any customers in Raymond, or are you going by municipality and doing those municipal contracts, or are you doing individual subscriptions?
So we don't have anything in Raymond right now, but let's say most of our expansion has been completely independent of any relationship with the town. So we say, we're going to expand into this community, and we think we can get enough subscribers to make it worthwhile. And we obviously have to get enough to get some route density. We couldn't drive there. We were only charging a few dollars a week per household, and there's a lot of costs that go into that. So, we go in thinking we're going to get hundreds, thousands even in a town. And so as we look into expanding into more rural areas, it's certainly attractive to work with the town to both get the word out quickly so we can overcome that painful hump when you don't have very many households on a route, and also possibly to we have a program, a new one with Waterville. Waterville's paying for a free month of service. We're giving another free month of service. So anyone who wants to sign up in Waterville gets 2 free months, and the funding extends to, I think they had $10,000 and it extended to 700 households, and then they were going to see from there. And we have a partnership with Hannaford, so they can pick up buckets at Hannaford and at these kiosks. So partnerships with the town definitely make it easier to expand. And I guess Raymond is certainly not too far for us. Like I said, the centralized drop-offs in commercial would be a no-brainer to start that. And we're already in, fairly close in North Windham. And from there, curbside's something we'd want to look at and hopefully collaborate on if there was interest.
Other questions?
Go
ahead.
What is happening in Windham right now with the garbage to garden?
What's happening really is conversations. We have commercial route in Windham, and just honestly, we should have had centralized drop-offs in Windham from the moment we had a commercial route there. We've actually serviced St. Joseph's College for years and years, and it's really just from being too busy with different opportunities and growing the business that, shame on me for not, going into Windham Town Hall and saying we need to get this done. But we've just recently started having those conversations, actually. So I anticipate getting at least centralized drop-offs in Windham soon. And over the years, we've added more commercial accounts, North Windham especially. So you can't sign up for curbside in Windham right now. But that also is something that there's interest to explore. And we're thinking that Windham, that we're in Westbrook, we're not in Windham. We would probably, if it was just up to us and we didn't have any help from the towns at all, we'd probably expand into Windham before we'd expand into Raymond. But we could skip right over Windham if Raymond wants to, something up.
Tyler, do you go to schools?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Really proud of that. 40 schools.
You doing Windham Rain? Are you doing the schools in Windham?
No, but that's another thing that we've talked about, and I think I've been to Wyndham schools to talk about composting with students and whatnot, but we do have a lot of experience with school programs. There's a lot of work that goes in, frankly, up front to get all the kids on the same page and doing it right and minimizing contamination. But we've got the playbook for that and have been doing that for many years. I think we've 40, 50 schools. So we would
Right.
be if we're to do centralized drop-off and the schools and then some businesses, and you really got a bit of a commercial route at that point.
Other
Thank
questions? So can you, go ahead, Jessica, go ahead.
I almost started talking without unmuting myself for the first time today, so. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I know in the past we've had issues with drop-off sites for trash in places where we had dumpsters for communities, and that became problematic. And I was wondering, and I don't know if this is a question for now or maybe for a later discussion, what is your experience with that, particularly in more rural communities or communities that don't necessarily have a lot of traffic in the area where these drop-off sites might be on a regular basis? And then how do you manage contamination in those types of sites?
Mm-hmm. So a couple parts to that question. We have drop-off sites from Bath to Arlington, Massachusetts. I don't know how many towns off the top of my head, a dozen maybe, and each one might have 1 to 3 drop-off sites. So we have quite a few, and wouldn't say that there's no abuse or, but I have never one time have there been like a bunch of trash bags dumped off there. And obviously you wouldn't expect it if it's like at the Freeport police station on Main Street, which we have one there, but we have ones in remote locations, in West Bath and different places that, no one would be looking when you're there. You might be, not a lot of traffic, like you said. So I don't know what to account. What I have seen sometimes is yard waste. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a massive issue, but sometimes people will leave, bags of yard waste near the totes, and we have to take care of that. And when we have had little problems here and there, we've put up signs that make clear, all the material has to be inside the bins, and, yard waste isn't what this is intended for. They say food scraps only, really meaning food scraps and parchment paper and muffin wrappers and stuff from your kitchen. But it's our name on it. We definitely don't want any drop-off site to be a mess, and we've always taken responsibility to make sure it isn't. And moving on from that, contamination, it's never perfect, but people use it because they want to. They want to do the right thing. They want to recycle their food waste. They're taking the time to separate it rather than throw it in a trash bag and drive it over there. So people aren't intentionally contaminating it. Sometimes you see food scraps in a plastic bag because they don't understand that, the biodegradable bags they see in there aren't the same thing. And we've managed that. We've had more contamination in certain places and had to put up certain signs, and it's helped. We've never had to close a drop-off location because of contamination. There's some small amount that's just tolerable because all of the food scraps, once processed into compost, are screened, and so some plastic bags and things will be screened out.
So can you just even give a ballpark idea of cost for like a centralized location if there was one in the town? Is there a way to do that or not without knowing something more from us?
I'd hesitate to just give you a ballpark idea. Okay. I think because I don't typically quote things now. I used to, and I might give you a number that was 5 years old or something. Okay. But, it is do you know, let me ask you this, maybe I can give you a better answer. Do you know what the cost is for 1 ton of trash for the tipping fee for Raymond, as well as any expense to get it to the site, the destination?
I
$41 a
recall
ton.
it, but Nathan does. Yeah, go ahead,
What-
Nathan.
$41 a ton's our tipping fee at MWAC. Our transportation fees are in a contract with Pine Tree Waste. Would have to take me a couple minutes to figure out how much per pound that is, but I'm sure you can figure it out. But our tipping fee
So-
for trash right now is 41.
All right, yeah. So I mean that's lower than Eco Maine. Eco Maine communities definitely see a savings. I think if I was going to give an answer, I was going to say about $50 a ton for the collection and the processing. So it sounds like it would probably be about the same. In other words, if we have a ton and it's $50, saves you $50 in trash. So it doesn't seem like something that would make sense from a let's cut the budget and save money by composting standpoint, but something where you could really add an option for residents and do something that reduces waste and improves your recycling rates without a budget impact.
Yeah, thank you. And so if somebody's doing a household subscription, then they're getting the compost back. But what happens if it's a drop-off, centralized drop-off site? Where does that compost go?
So we work with processors. We're working on, we'll end up doing a lot of our own processing in the future, but we work with other farms. And so the way that our agreements work, we're kind of customers on both sides, and we're paying them to process material. We're buying compost at special discounts and giving it back to people. So anything we do give compost back to all like commercial accounts. We've done compost giveaways or given compost back to towns for public use or on public property, landscaping and whatnot. But it's not like if we're trying to prioritize the lowest cost, we're not going to give you back all the compost that the food scrap turns into. But we would, if you wanted a lot of compost, we would give it back at a rate that was essentially like a wholesale, at cost type of deal. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thanks. Other questions? Don?
One thought I had is if you are able to take this wet waste out of the waste stream, we're going to a trash to energy plant, it's going to improve the BTU efficiency of the plant. It's going to free up space for spot market waste, which comes in at a much higher rate. That would be something that would help to reduce the overall budget. And maybe that could be passed on to the member communities. We have a very small facility, but I have experience in my prior town with PERC, the big plant. And I will tell you, when I first saw the little MWAC or main waste to energy plant, I was thinking, how can this thing be? And it has been. I mean, it's been very stable, very reliable. And, it's a technology that's different than the bigger plants. But, and the other thing that's great about it is I think a small community with a good idea could probably make a change or a difference there. So if it was something that caught on and a number of towns did it, maybe there could be some sort of an arrangement with the facility to, for some financial recompense for taking out that waste that is not great and freeing up the space for waste that the plant likes and, is much better for producing electricity and so forth.
Great. Thank you, Don. Anyone else? Well, again, thank you, Tyler, for joining us and for the information. We'll seek you out if we come up with some other questions, perhaps. And again, thanks, Karen, for arranging for Tyler to join us this evening. And with that, if we are all set, yeah, thanks, Tyler.
Yeah.
You're free to go or free to stay, however you care to do it. So
I've got some other. I'll maybe do a little work in the background and just keep it on just to see how it goes. But
okay.
and if anyone has it, I'll be around a little bit if if it comes back to a free time and then anyone has another question. But you can definitely reach out to me or Phoebe, who Karen connected with, anytime. We're local and accessible, and happy to meet again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Great. So our next item is also a presentation by Casella. And Nathan, I don't know if you want to introduce folks for us, or appreciate you being here. Thanks, Nathan.
I'm going to ask Chris to introduce himself and his, I've got their business card right here. Go ahead, Chris. How about you do it?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
So,
My name's Chris McHale. I'm the general manager here, the market area manager. I've been in this role for a couple of years now. I've been with Casella for 15 years, in various locations throughout New England, mostly in Maine. Been working in this market, like I said, a couple of years. We are your current collector of your recyclables in Raymond. We also are the operator of the facility that gets brought to in Lewiston, the Lewiston MRF, that processes that recycling. We've been doing it with you guys for quite some time now, and contracted out to 2026. Again, I know you guys have some questions that you have about your recycling and ways to improve that. We are very happy to have a community reach out to us. I know Nathan's been trying to get with us for a little bit here over the past couple months, and we're glad we were able to connect today. We have some ideas on how we can improve the recycling in Raymond, and most of that's going to be centered around education and community outreach. So again, it's really nice to see a community that is reaching out to us and wanting to improve that. I have with me Talia and Aaron. I'll turn it over to Aaron so she can kind of introduce herself and what she does at Casella Waste.
Thanks, Chris. Aaron Banfield. I manage our municipal segment across our footprint. Thanks for having us here tonight. Tyler, appreciated everything, all the information you shared. That was really helpful for us as well. And it's nice to kind of put a face to the name Garbage to Garden. Don't know if it's helpful for all of you folks to kind of get a background on Casella, of who we are and where we came from. Okay. So we were founded by a typical entrepreneurial couple of brothers in Rutland, Vermont back in 1975. So we've been operating almost 50 years now. We started our first recycling facility and the first recycling facility in the state of Vermont in 1977. So right out of the gate of our organization, the Casellas have been investing and on the forefront of the recycling industry. We currently now operate from Maine out to Buffalo and Western Pennsylvania. Most recently have moved into the Connecticut market. We've got a variety of facilities. We're what the industry calls fully integrated. So we have collection and hauling assets, as Chris just mentioned, providing the collection service to the town of Raymond today. We've got transfer stations where we're transferring waste, recycling, construction demolition, wood debris, and then we own and operate a number of recycling facilities, the majority of them being our single stream facilities. We've got a couple of smaller recycling operations that we'll kind of put in this industrial category. We specialize in handling your hard to recyclable material out of large manufacturing plants, or source separated materials. If a town has baled cardboard, we handle that type of material. We've got a location right in Scarborough, Maine. And then we also own and or operate through public-private partnerships, a network of landfills. So we've got the final disposal capacity as well. We are about 3,000, just under 3,000 employees now, publicly traded, but very much still owned and are very much operated as a family company as we were founded. So you've got a local service team here. There's been some changes in the market we're really excited about, what we can come and offer. And as Chris said, super excited to hear community reach out and say, hey, what can we do better to improve our recycling? Again, it's always been on the forefront of our organization, what we've built ourselves on and what we pride ourselves on. And we're hoping that we can help the town of Raymond in particular tonight set some goals and then achieve them. So I'll kind of pause there. I don't know if that opens up for questions.
Well, yeah, and so I think what started the whole committee, but obviously Rolf or Don, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the conversation came up about we weren't doing a good job recycling. Recyclables were contaminated, and that was increasing the cost of recycling. And the question was, you know, and also not sure what the market was for some of the recycling. But I think we've learned that the question about there not really being a market that has been sort of resolved, that's changed, that there is again a market for recyclables, but really a question of what's the way to do this in the most cost-effective way. Be sure people are educated about proper recycling. Those were the sort of the issues that I believe led to the formation of this committee. Again, anyone else feel free to jump in. So we are looking to come up with some recommendations to go back to the select board about having recycling going forward. If we're continuing to do it, how do we do it better so that it's certainly better for the environment, but also cost effective. And so those are sort of the background, if you will. So specific questions are really about ways to do that, to improve what we're doing in town, to be sure people are understanding it. Some of us have attended some of the webinars that we've had through adult ed on better ways to recycle. I've learned a lot about composting myself, and guess what? We're now composting. You're not the only one, Sue. So, you know, not doing it real well yet.
So I could kind of give you a state of where your recycling is at right now, and then we can kind of turn that into a conversation about maybe some ideas of improving that. Right now, you're recycling at a rate of about 17%. That's not very high. It's not the lowest we've seen. You're comparable to some surrounding communities. We see higher recycling rates are not always mean that towns are doing better at recycling. Some of your pay-as-you-throw communities can, the ones that you're buying the bags, those can, sometimes increase the contamination rates, especially if there's not a good education program for that community. So that's where we are right now. You're doing about 379 ton a year in recyclables compared to about, I think it was around 1,700 ton in MSW, so a little over that. So there are definitely room for improvement, I believe, when we look at those numbers. Aaron can speak to some of the ways that we can do that. I know we've talked. I mean, one of the big ones is you can't have limitations on what they can put in their bin as far as capacity. So we talked a little bit about that earlier, about how if we have the smaller bins, once those fill up, whatever is leftover is gonna end up in the MSW. So I know you guys have done some of the stickers where you can put them on a regular bin, but yeah. So I'll turn it over to Aaron now, and they can talk about some of the other stuff we've done with other communities.
Can we just call on Rolf first? He's got his hand up. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aaron.
Just a couple of quick questions. You say we're at 17%. Is it 17% because there's a percentage that's spoilage or contaminated? So in theory, people think they're doing better than we are. And then also, are you seeing a difference summer to non-summer as far as contaminated versus non-contaminated?
So the 17%, that's your, that does not include contamination. That is the amount of recyclables we're dumping out right now at the recycle facility. As far as your contamination rate of what we've seen, to be honest, we don't really have a great handle on that at this time, because with COVID, a lot of those efforts to go out there and look at some of this stuff, be out in the public over the past few years have really kind of put a hit on that. So I think that's kind of what we want to do today is kind of talk about some ways we can start monitoring your contamination, and so that's kind of a stepping stone of where we're looking to move this conversation.
Great. Aaron?
Yeah, so I think Chris hit the nail on the head. Again, we'll go back a little bit we've had some changes recently in the market. And like everybody, not to sound like the broken record, but everybody's hurting for labor right now. So we've been a little bit short-staffed at our Lewiston MRF. But one thing, and I apologize, we've kind of left Tal out here. So Tal and I work together. Tal's real focus stepping into this market to support Chris on all of these initiatives that the municipalities in the Southern Maine market have. So Tal's going to kind of be your face for education and engagement moving forward with Chris. But a couple of things that we were just tossing around earlier. So our real role is making sure that we're able to share best practices from Massachusetts to Maine to New York to Vermont, and what's working, what's not working. And we've done it in a couple of communities, larger communities, I'll say in the Southern Maine market, but we've done some tagging programs. So we're out on the streets, putting some notes on bins, whether it's a oops sticker, if you will, or a poster of, hey, here's what's recyclable, here's what is accepted, what's not accepted, what we want to see in the bin, what we don't want to see in the bin. And we've seen that really to be an awesome touch point to the residents. And there's certainly kind of best practices of way of rolling that out. So as Chris said, we'd want to start with baselining where we are with contamination today, get a good understanding of where we're at, where the problem areas on route might be, and then start kind of focusing on those areas. And I think just overall, broadly, we can take a look at, and we should have done this prior to, but take a look at what's on the town website for educational materials. I'm not sure today if we're sending out any sort of mailer with a collection calendar and some what we'll call the acceptables list. But we've got a marketing team that can specialize any sort of documents or videos for public access channels, videos for websites, anything that might be a good touch point to the residents that would just be really low hanging fruit, get it out there, beginning of the month. And then you go to the kind of finer details of a tagging program. We could do some school educational kind of presentations. We always say the best residents to start with are the kids, because they come home and tell your parents, that's not right, this is right, do this. So we've got a number of folks in our organization that can help support that. It's kind of up to you guys to tell us what your needs are, and how we can get that done together. Would love to have you come tour the MRF as well if none of you have seen Lewiston. We always find that to be super beneficial when people can start seeing the mechanisms, how the material gets separated, what clogs up what machines and why, and how that is detrimental to the shift and then the longevity of the equipment. But if that's something of interest, we can certainly set that up too.
Well, I know there's a lot on your website. I have looked at that a number of times, and so I appreciate that. I do realize there's a lot of material today. Yeah. To try to connect with questions from anyone. Go ahead, Nathan.
We had the opportunity to meet with Chris, and forgive me, Taylor and Dave McNally earlier this week. And one of the things that we talked about was containers. And I'm wondering if we had better containers available to the public at their, obviously at their cost. If that would be, you think that would help with the contamination, Chris?
I think, I don't know if it would actually help with contamination itself. I think what it would do is promote, you know, more recycling. Obviously, if the capacity is more than what the smaller bins that most of them are using now. So I think if that would promote just more recycling, which is better. Keep it out of the waste stream. So yeah, so I think you know, that's where we would see the benefit of there.
We kind of talked to the cost on them was around $50 a piece, and Don and I talked afterwards about offering those to the residents. I mean, obviously at their cost. I mean, you're talking $125,000 to hit 2,300 houses with them. So I don't know if that's the program we should start back up or look a little bit further into, or
Yeah, no, I think, you know, as we look and you know, as we talked, you know, prior this week, it would get you a head start if at some point we were moving to an automated style truck. The way we do things now, with the guy hanging off the back of the truck, driving down the road, is kind of one that's kind of going away. So it's, you know, eventually we'd like to see most of our communities be the automated truck style, which is where you have 2 bins and he pulls up with the arm that comes off the truck. You know, obviously with the labor market the way it is, that's kind of speeding up those processes because it's harder and harder to find people who are willing to ride on the back of that truck. So kind of got off on a little bit there, but that's kind of a little bit of a benefit if you were to go to those totes. You're already getting a head start.
the automated system. I think the closest town to us right now that's doing that's Westbrook, correct?
You're correct. Westbrook currently is the closest one. There's nothing north of Westbrook. You get Bangor. Bangor just over about a year and a half ago. They're having a lot of success with it, but in between Portland and Bangor, there's not a whole lot of it. We're working with a number of communities at this time to work on switching those over. But yeah, right now it's Westbrook's is far north. They do it in Freeport, Yarmouth, but those are more of a subscription style. So.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Jessica?
Yeah, I have 2 things. One, at my dad's house, they have the automatic thing, and it's a giant bin, and it really works beautifully. Just putting that out there. And the other thing is, and I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing now. At my house, we have purchased a large regular garbage bin because we kept overflowing on our recyclables, and we put like our own big sticker on it that says recycle, and it has been being picked up as recyclables. So I think we figured it out, but I wonder if that's a possibility for maybe a short term or interim. If folks had more recycling, could they buy their own big bin and then just put a sticker on it, or have I broken the rules?
She's broken the rules.
I think Nathan touched on that, the idea of us starting to get into you know, purpose-built bins that would be suitable for automated pick, and start with the recycling, you know, bins. And we used to offer the little tubs, which we were told the other day during our meeting, which are not the way to go. That's not the future. And so I think we could begin to I guess get into the position where we could be not only uniform throughout the town, but well placed for automated pick. And kind of segues into, I don't want to take away from your question if you got another one, but I wanted to know what was in automated pick for us besides, you know, I know the labor savings, the efficiency, you know, in subsequent contracts, would we get if we were to invest in all these tubs, we'd have that, I guess, resource for our citizens and be ready to go online when it came our way. But, you know, I'm wondering what's in it besides the efficiencies. Yeah, we're hearing that recycling doesn't improve recycling, so what else?
Yeah, so no, the biggest thing with it would be the efficiency. It's a little bit cleaner service. You're thing, you know, you don't have a big pile of trash. There's less, you know, animals going through the material. It's a cleaner service than what the rear load is. For us, it's a safety thing. We got a guy hanging on the back of a truck, and you know, working 9-10 hours a day. That's a tough job, and it's one that, again, it's becoming more and more difficult to staff, and we're having difficulty doing it. We're having difficulty every day finding people who are willing to do that. Dave McNally's on it. He deals with it on a daily basis of trying to figure it, you know, get these people on the trucks, and I don't really see that getting any easier anytime soon. So as far as improving the recycling and improving the you know, that side of things, that all stuff goes back to the education piece, and the person putting the material in the bin is what matters.
If we were to make this investment, I mean, we just entered into a new contract, but if we made the investment in the bins, as I think Nathan's interested in doing, you know, would we see savings in subsequent contracts because of the efficiencies and labor, or no?
Yes, you would, in the sense that you'd get a head start over that initial cost of those bins if you were to buy them. Whereas I can guarantee you that they're $55 now. I would assume by the time this contract ends, they're going to be a lot more than that. So
yeah, well, we would probably do it the Raymond way, which we would buy them up front and then sell them to our citizens. And that's actually worked here. We had a big demand for the tubs when we were selling composters. Those were, I think, near $100, and we couldn't keep those in stock. So, and that's another thing. I don't know if the Garbage to Garden, I guess he's not here, but in a place like Raymond, to me, it seems like composting is a great idea anywhere, but doing it in your backyard with one of those composters might be a good way to go too. But anyway, so we've invested in these tubs and composters, and so we might consider investing in barrels and either sell them to the citizens, pay for them, or cost share with them, because I think we need to get positioned for automated pick. And in talking to your predecessor, twice removed, he was telling me, as I said in the meeting the other day, that we were waiting for a larger community to buy the truck that would service us. And so, you know, he talked about, well, the city, I guess, near us that was going to get that truck. And so I don't know where that all is and when we might see the automated truck in Raymond.
I'd like to touch on that a little bit. I think there's a lot more work to be done before we automate Raymond. We've got a lot of camp roads that are going to be a problem. We probably part of the town you could do it, but there's a lot of it I don't think you could do it automated. In the summertime, we've got a pant load of camp roads that have quite a bit of, that would be problematic. We just got out of going in and out roads a couple of years ago. I don't really want to go back into going in and out of them if we can avoid it.
Yeah, every town that we automated, you know, there's some issues that with those types of scenarios. To your question, we're probably a few years before you can't half automate a town, so it's either got to go all in or not,
Right.
as far as the majority of it. So I think it's you know, with equipment. I mean, if I wanted to buy an automated truck, I'm a year out before I ever see that. So it's always good to be talking about it down the road. But realistically, with Raymond, I know what you're saying as far as another town would have to buy the truck for Raymond. I think what that's in reference to is it'd be difficult for Raymond to be the first one because you'd also have to carry a spare truck. There's some other things that would go along with that, but yeah, no, we're probably a few years away from really, being able to have a serious conversation.
On the other truck thing, I was just having a little fun because that's what Stu told me, that that Auburn, to be blunt, would buy the truck and then we'd use it, 2 days a week here. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like Stu.
Yeah.
Rolf, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm hearing what's that, these are bigger bins. And if I look at, if I drive down the road on a Wednesday or Thursday or whatever, and see what's sitting out there, and knowing a lot of the people that are lugging those up from downstream or down roads and things like that, how's that going to work as far as someone having a big bin like that, having to bring it up to the edge of the road, especially when we get these nice snow days and things like that, and they get snowed in? How does that work versus the smaller ones that are either they can put on the snowbank or they're a lot easier for people to get up there? Is that going to drive us down the road of having to go into more of consolidated sites to bring those to, or where are we going with that?
And that's part of my concern about doing that, Rolf, is that you got a couple of, just pick any camp road, even if there's a couple of town roads we don't go into, Dyer Road off from North Raymond Road. There's 5 houses in there, so they've got to drag that all out half a mile to curbside, which would be North Raymond Road. And I've got 2 totes. I got a 60 and a 90-gallon tote. And when they're full, you're not dragging them too far. And that's a concern I have. We, Dave and I, on the last two contracts ago, Dave remapped the town, and we got out of going in a lot of the camp roads that weren't suitable for the truck to go in, that we were having trouble. And I don't want to get back into going in and out of those roads. That's gonna.
No, we don't want to do that either. We wouldn't want it. So there's, again, we're probably a ways away from that. I mean, what we were talking about are the 64-gallon bins, which are a little bit smaller. They do have wheels, so there is you can roll them. They're not, you don't have to drag them. They do have wheels, but before I get, Dave, was there anything you wanted to add to anything that we discussed? Dave's the operations manager in Mechanic Falls, who services Raymond, and has been doing this for longer than I could ever imagine. So he knows it. He knows this area very, very well. Was there anything you've heard yet, Dave? I was kind of curious. There was a comment about when they get to seasonality. Do you see an increase of contamination with that stuff, Dave?
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, so first of all, I want to reassure everybody the contamination rate on recycling in Raymond is actually very low for the community. The people that recycle over there, they do a great job. The biggest part of the contamination comes from the common drop areas where we have the dumpsters at the areas. That's where we have the problems with contamination. With that said, the biggest bang for your buck to increase recycling is more capacity at the curbside, meaning getting away from those little totes and getting, rather if it's just education, having people buy their own actual trash cans and putting labels on them for recycling, which is perfectly fine. The individual that has done it themselves, we love it as long as it's clearly marked. We're happy to pick it up because your residents are running out of capacity. Now, to the point of your seasonal people, they don't participate very well in your recycling program. So your weekend warriors, as I like to call them, they come up, they have a good time in your town, enjoy your waterfront property, but everything just gets thrown in trash bags and out to the curb, unsorted. Well, it doesn't have to be sorted, but they don't even separate it into recycling. That's not on their mind. They're up enjoying your community. So if you want to increase your recycling rates, target your seasonal residents. Your year-round residents are doing a great job. And again, very low contamination. They just need to understand that it's okay to grab themselves a bigger container, rather if they buy it from the town, or they just go to the hardware store and maybe just put recycling on it. My guys are looking for that, label cans. If it's clearly marked, we're grabbing it. And again, you folks are doing, as far as your contamination rates compared to other communities I service, you guys are doing a great job.
I'm glad you said that, Dave. We should have started with that, and where Chris and I mentioned we don't know, we don't have a good idea today. Typically in our world, when we don't hear from the MRF, that's a good thing. Unless there's a problem, then they typically give us a call and say, hey, we've got to jump on this. But Dave, I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, I am too. I'm very, very proud of us then. So that does help a lot, because that was certainly one of the primary concerns that we were hearing, that was an issue. So
I have a question. Cardboard. I think the bigger containers would be helpful because people could put their cardboard in their bins, but you draw, rainy days, cardboard is sitting out. I don't know how wet it has to be contaminated. I mean, is it just, drenched or is it damp and then it's contaminated? So I have, and there's a lot of cardboard, everybody's shopping, Amazon. So I'm sure you see that. So that's one thing. The other thing I went on your website and it's great. I really, it was very helpful, especially putting your lids back on your jars. I didn't know I could do that. And the cans, you don't have to squish them or anything, and the paper can stay on them. So that's nice. I was wondering about plastic. Plastic is I understand the bags and all that, but you get so many different kind of plastic containers. And what you listed on your website was tubs, drinking bottles, yogurt cups, some other bottles, but not, and milk jugs. But what about these plastic takeout containers? There's everything you buy is, and I don't know whether to throw that in the recycling bin. That was that thing I wanted to ask you about. And also, in certain parts of this town, the garbage pails get pretty beat up. So and they're expensive. If you buy one of those heavy duty ones, they're up almost, about 100. They could be as much as $100, but they're the only ones you can have because they get beat up. Lids go missing, and I'm not complaining because I see the guys go by my house, and I go, oh my God, So in fact, sometimes I only have one bag, and I run out and throw it in the. So he doesn't have to get off the truck and everything for that. I'm nuts, but. That's because I'm home all the time, but I'd have the plastic I would like some help on, and how wet does the cardboard have to be before it's a lost cause?
So I can start with the cardboard, Susan. The biggest contaminant in any single stream volume certainly is moisture. And being that we live in New England and we get rain and snow and sleet, seems like 12 months a year, that's our biggest challenge. But knowing that, we're not classifying contamination because of the moisture today. To Dave's point, the capacity that the residents are looking for is solved by carts. A lot of the elements are also solved by carts. You've got a bin that you've got a lid that closes, and some recycling cans, right? You've got the long cardboard box that maybe didn't break down quite all the way, and it sticks up a little bit. The lid at least is helping most of the elements stay out of the bin. On the plastics, you're not alone, and I don't know what to do with it. So our acceptables list, we've kind of become the universal single stream guideline within Casella. And just a quick history on that. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, Massachusetts has, call it a handful of MRFs, and every MRF had a different acceptables list. We take that, we don't take this. They take this, they don't take that. So Mass DEP said, could you guys sit down in a room and just come up with one list that you all agree on? We did that. What you see on that acceptables list is that exact list, trying to go quote unquote back to the basics and make it a little bit hopefully clearer for people in reclassifying the groups. So tubs and lids, jugs and bottles. It was hopefully answering a lot of the questions, but knowing we kind of left out this clamshell or takeout containers area. Those plastics are typically have the least value because they're flimsy. You think of like a raspberry clamshell, they're the flimsy breakable plastic. Those are really, really hard to get back into a product that then is recyclable into another material, because it's so at the end of its life being that super thin material. And then I think of, you know, the Thai or Chinese food containers with the black bottom and the clear lid. Black plastic is also the hardest, because once it's black, it can't be any other plastic. It's got to be something made back into black. You have a little bit of black in a colored load, and that whole load automatically becomes a black recycled material. Those long-winded way, those are all acceptable. There are so few of those. What seems like that might be your whole bin. In the retrospect of the entire stream, it's such a small percent that they're able to filter those in within those grades of plastics, PET, meaning your water bottles, HDs, meaning your milk jugs. Those plastics are able to get sorted and kind of commingled in. That there's no rejection on those. So short answer is continue to throw those right in your recycling bin.
So the other flimsy plastic, you're saying yes, throw them in, or no?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
That's helpful. Like
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful, because there's a lot of that. I mean, I try not to buy that much of it, but it seems though when you start really drilling down, it's the packaging that's going to have to really could make a big difference.
Yeah.
It's, you know, in terms of, and I know that's being worked on in many ways, but
it is, and just to kind of give you some perspective, right? When you look at your entire residential bin, your plastics, your PET, your HDPE only make up 1% of the stream, or less than 1% of the stream. So again, where it seems like you've got them coming out your ears, in retrospect, there's not that many. Your cardboard's 30%, your mixed paper's 20%. So right there, your fibers are 50% of your stream. So
you burn the trash you burn. I think you guys we talked about this, but I've forgotten the trash. That gets burned. Yeah, right.
Yeah, our MSW goes to Mid-Maine Waste Management in Auburn. That's
okay. And it's burned. Yeah.
Yep.
We've kind of gone a little bit past it, but I was going to say something nice about Casella Pine Tree, since they said something nice about us. And that is, when I came here 21 years ago, we had another company and we were inundated with complaints and problems. Now, not to say that we aren't without problems. I guess we can all speak to that, can't we, Dave and Nathan and everybody involved with trash handling here in Raymond? There are always going to be some complaints and complainants, but we don't get very many complaints at all. People seem to understand the system. They appreciate the system. If anything, you know, we from time to time get folks who are complimentary about it, and the town and Casella have worked, you know, very closely together. Nathan and Dave have a great relationship, and they work with one another and assist one another when it makes sense. And so I just wanted to say that we have a great company to work with, and that's very important in a good relationship.
I agree that you come out in all weather, you work most holidays. Really, hats off, really.
It's just going back really quickly to the automated pick, I guess you were calling it. At some point, if that does happen, you were talking about the bigger bins just for recycling, but that would then also be bigger bins we would need for the trash, right? I mean, be the same size. Okay.
That's not necessarily true. My mom lives in Scarborough, and I think they have a smaller barrels for elderly folks.
Oh, are you looking at me, Don? Please.
No. I'm saying it doesn't have to be a big barrel.
Yeah.
But-
There-
Or maybe young families, let's say, who don't generate as much waste, but maybe they do. So my
Right, well,
mother
I was
asked for
I was also going to say,
small barrels, and she got them.
you wouldn't necessarily fill it, even if it's big. I mean, you know, it's I don't know that we would generate a full bin, larger bin of recycling, although it sounds like some people would, but anyway. So
I have one more comment.
Go ahead.
Is that all right, Grace? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was a request by a gentleman that works at the Hannaford, and I was in the checkout line, and he must be watching the meetings. And he said to me, he would really love it if the town had stickers for the barrels. Because he went out and bought a new barrel to recycle, and he says, I had to make a sticker, or it wasn't a good, something that will really stick to the barrel. So that was a request. And I said to him, next time at the meeting, I'll ask.
Yeah, we went down the sticker. We went down the sticker road a number of years ago, and we tried that, and the stickers were very quickly deteriorated by weather and so forth. So maybe there's a better.
Those were terrible stickers. Those were terrible stickers.
A better sticker these days, but
Yeah.
I'll defer to Casella on that. But we don't want to do the stickers we did before.
No, they were terrible.
I
Right.
think the sticker thing, it's all about how much you pay for the sticker. We've been directing people, if they ask, just spray paint recycling on the side of that's pretty,
That's a good idea.
it's kind of.
Yeah, I like the idea of something uniform, and
I do.
We're a rural town, but I don't know as I am really excited about everybody spraying recycling or trash on their barrels. That's just me, maybe. I don't know.
I think the recycled toters and offer them to the residents at our cost I think that's going to help a lot.
If I may jump in, can you guys hear me all right?
yep,
All right.
go ahead, Dave.
As you guys move forward with this early on, if you can get the information out to your residents, first of all, if they buy blue trash containers for their recycling, that's the first key thing that my guys are looking for.
That's right. Yeah.
Then, as far as labeling go, once we identify them, a lot of times my drivers will put labels on them just to make sure if there's a spare driver in there, he sees it. I can get some labels over to Nate to make them available. But if your residents at least buy the blue colored trash containers,
Can you suggest?
Signal for my drivers to, hey, these people are recycling, they slow down. And get
That's
ready.
a good idea. Yeah.
During our meeting, I think Nathan had a great idea, and that was to, as a pilot program, buy 10 or 20 of these things, advertise, see how they go, come up with some kind of a, formula, or maybe it's, completely consumer buy. But could you recommend a barrel and a manufacturer that we could investigate that with? And, maybe that would be a way to try it, buy 20 barrels, advertise it in our Roadrunner, and then see if people respond to that.
Yeah,
On
I
that
can
note, Don, out of all the barrels out there in the industry, and I've been at it for a long, long time, the brute barrels are the strongest. I don't know if they come in blue. I will tell you, and I'll warn you, a lot of people go down to Home Depot or Lowe's and they buy the nice fancy little recycling totes at, I think, $70 a tote. The first thing that's going to happen, it's got the nice little flip lid on it. They're going to be mad after the first week when the lid gets broke off, because it's not a good investment. If we can get on board and we can get some industrial totes, the 65-gallon ones, make it somehow or other, the town sells them to the residents, that's the way to go. Our commercial totes will hold up to the elements out there. The ones that people are spending a lot of money on at the hardware stores, I'm sorry, they're not made out of good quality plastics. They end up breaking, and then you got a very upset resident. So I caution you on encouraging them to go buy those, but
They
Yeah,
were made out of
awesome.
the flimsy clamshell plastics, right? So anyway, I'm just saying.
A lot of those plastics, when they get cold, you get 10 degrees or colder out here.
It's brittle.
Yeah, you can go to tap them on the body of the truck to get the trash out of them or the recycling out of them, bust them or break the handle off because they're frozen in the ground. And
Absolutely.
Jessica's been waiting to ask something, say something.
Well, I just wanted to say, I was really pleased to hear that we weren't breaking the rules when we went and bought a big tote for our recycles. And we did purchase a sticker that has been there now, I think, for 3 years. That is the recycling symbol that is on both the side and the lid of our bin. So we got to. The stickers weren't incredibly inexpensive, but they have held up well. So that was just a suggestion. Those stickers are out there somewhere. We got ours at Lowe's. But it might be easier to buy them in bulk from somewhere or cheaper, and then, have folks get them from the town. I'm not sure.
I was just going to suggest a stencil so we could all paint it nice and neatly. But anyway, Rolf.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at some point you get the cart before the horse, because if we go down the road, we get, and we get some of these big containers. All of a sudden now you've got a 70 or 80 pound thing that you're expecting the guys on the back of the truck to dump. At what point, I mean, you've got to think that side of it through too, that says it doesn't make sense to get those real big ones that are going to be too bulky for them to work with until you do the other. So at what point does the dog wag the tail, or the tail wag the dog?
The 64 gallon, and Dave knows this better than me, but the 65 gallon industrial tote, it isn't too cumbersome especially if it's recycling. If it was trash, would we be talking a different story? But the trucks that we send out there are equipped with what we call a toter tipper. Even the one that doesn't have the arm on it, the rear load trucks that we're running now do come equipped with toter tippers, so you can still put it on a piece of equipment that it lifts it up for you. I don't know if Dave knows anything.
Yeah, I just hate to trade one problem for another, and all of a sudden you can't get people to work because the things are too big for them to deal with.
Ralph, as full as my wife's stuff set toter I've got, I don't think it reaches 40 pounds. The recycling stuff trash is terrible. A bag of trash can get up to 30, 40 pounds. But the recycling, because it's, just smaller items and it's not compacted and it's not wet, it doesn't really get that heavy.
Well, if we could get all the food stuff out of our trash, that would lighten it up a bit.
Other questions for either Chris or Dave or Talia or Aaron? Okay, so it sounds like we've got some ideas about ways we might proceed. I'm not sure actually at what point we start to make these recommendations to the select board, or if Rolf and Don and Nathan are hearing enough right now. Even, I mean, it's certainly education would be the first step, I think, in terms of trying to get some more people to recycle. The whole seasonal thing is that's a pretty big issue to figure out some way to tackle that, but I do understand that would be a concern. And then possibly bins, or at least communicating about better bins. I don't know, Don, what do you think?
Did you say Don?
Yeah, I thought it looked like you were about to say
Well,
something.
what I was going to say was, you were on the topic of education, and during our meeting, I think that is the key. We talked about the possibility, and you would know a lot about this, of whether our schools would, entertain the opportunity to have, Aaron or Talia or somebody come in and give a program, because they do that and they're willing to do that. And I think if you start, educating the children, I know we do it with fire safety. We take our fire trailer there, we do fire drills, we do different things to indoctrinate them into fire safety. Do you think the schools would work with us on this as part of the environmental education or whatever?
Well, I would hope so. I'm glad to relay this to the superintendent Howell or something like that, and just kind of, start the conversation there, certainly.
I'm talking, that'd be great if you would do that. I'm thinking because here in the younger grades and so it becomes something that the kids come home with, like their flyers, and talk about the recycling and maybe they notice that the parents could do better. I'm just saying, I don't know, it's just an idea.
I'm gonna hold up a flyer we got from Casella Waste. I'm not sure when it came. It's in my new folder, so it's fairly new. We got this mailed to the town office a while back. These fairly expensive. Are they hard to regenerate? Is that something we could get to mail out? I mean, it's got all kinds of recycling information in it. It's kind of handy, I think.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we could provide you for sure. Those are fairly inexpensive, and we have quite a few of them around.
That's a good idea. Years and years ago, when you embarked on this, I remember there was a nice cardboard form that told you what to do and what not to do. And there are people that still have that on their refrigerator. So that would be there you go. So that would be a great start. Yeah. I mean, all you have to have is something in front of you that you can see, oh no, I shouldn't put that in there. I shouldn't put that in there. But that's in your kitchen, which is that's a good idea. Start with that.
So are you suggesting having enough of those to go with students, or at least a certain grade? Maybe it's not going to be every single student in the art, but is that possible to provide that for distributing in schools?
Pass them out at the schools or do a mailing.
Yeah, we can get a mock-up and then get you some pricing on either prints and or mail. And then we could do a mailing out to all of the residents. I would suggest, if we're going to do a mailer, including a collection calendar, and do it for like a July start. So mail them out beginning of June or May. And then we could certainly talk about just a quote for getting stacks at places around town, whether it's DPW, Nathan, and you hand them out there. They're accessible to residents if they're maybe at, I'm not sure if there's a library in town, but the library, and then certainly the schools. So we can certainly work on kind of getting a mock-up and something over to you guys to take a look at.
Do you guys have anything for our local channel?
Yeah, so we've got a video of how our MRF works. It's our Charlestown MRF, and down in Boston, it's the 5th largest in this side of the Mississippi, which is kind of exciting. And then we've got some new commercials that have recently aired that we could provide as well. They're around, sustainability and where our organization's going. So we could send you some links that you guys could take a look at and let us know which ones you like.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then my thought around the doing something in the schools, Grace, it might pair really well with doing something in April. Earth Day is usually like the 20 something. So it might be nice to kind of do some sort of Earth Day event.
Wouldn't it be cute for the kids to do a little video for our TV channel? I mean, as a project, something to think about. But once we get into the schools, I think that would be kind of fun. People might watch it because their kids would be on it.
Yeah,
I know.
We've also got we do a little calendar competition. I remember doing it when I was in school. We always did it with the fire safety, which you had mentioned. And we do, I think it's 3rd grade. Everyone draws a picture around recycling or trash, the garbage man come in, or something that has to do with the industry. And then we submit them all and we create a Maine state calendar, which would be really fun to roll out in town as well.
Kathy, you had your hand up before, did you?
Yeah, I think if we're going to do a flyer, we need to really customize it just to Raymond and what we're doing right, what we're not, how to improve, certainly to get the seasonal people, but where to wait till we make a decision on if we are going to have totes, get all of that into the flyer. And I really think we need to really look at the food waste, because if we can get that out of the stream of our trash, that's going to save us some money. But can the committee kind of come together and decide what direction we're going to go, and if we're going to do the garden or composting somewhere, put it all together into one big flyer from the committee? I think that would be worthwhile looking at.
I mean, I think the gentleman that was here, Tyler, I mean, it's a good point that we were going to save a lot of money, but I think the people that burn trash would appreciate less of the food waste in your trash. From videos I've watched, I mean, it's wet. It's very, very wet food stuff. So it would help everybody all around. It really would.
So I think I heard Kathy volunteer to design this flyer, right, Kathy?
Yeah. I would work on it.
Great. Anything else for the folks from Casella?
The only thing that I would add is we talked a lot about the bins. Again, yeah, the education piece is where you're going to get your bang for your buck. But it was really good to hear that Dave said the recycling is doing well in Raymond. But I still think it's important that we get a baseline and we do an audit where we can see where you are now. Hey, maybe we can do another one in your peak season with your weekend warriors, as Dave calls them, to see maybe how that changes. And it'd be good to still get a start tracking your contamination.
Is it better that have you noticed anything better since we've gotten rid of our dumpsters? I know we had 2 down the end of my road, so I've seen up close and personal what they look like.
Down on Deep Cove.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a mess.
Yeah, I was texting Nate. I said, you got to look, this is just ridiculous. So I'm glad it went, although it was nice to have, but that was horrible.
I just got a call. Yesterday was Wednesday, right? Yeah, yesterday was Deep Cove, and I don't know where these people have been, but they just discovered that they're missing, and they weren't happy about it.
Oh.
So their trash picked up, but I'm not sure but yeah, those were a problem. But we found that the dumpsters, when they're visible, they become a bigger problem. But most, like Dave had said earlier, most of our contamination in the recycling comes from the dumpsters. Dumpsters, people see them as dumpsters. They have something they want to get rid of, and that's where it's going.
Oh yeah, there was no point in having a recycling dumpster down there.
No, there wasn't. There wasn't at all. It's pretty much the norm with those. I think we've got one site that's okay at the best, but for the most part, they're pretty bad.
Oh well, yeah.
But we had a problem there was a problem on those roads trying to get the trash picked up, and we had to create a solution to that. And I guess my thought or my opinion would be we need to try to look at that. I'm not sure what the solution is. I don't know if there is a solution to it.
Oh, for our road, you mean down on?
No, for any of them. No, for any of them. So your road cured its problem. I think the biggest problem on your road was everybody on that road was taking their trash down to the dumpsters.
No.
Dumpsters weren't designed for that. The week we pulled them out, all the trash appeared at the end of everybody's driveway on that road. You probably did have some scattered coming in from away or from out on 302. I don't think a lot, but we didn't see really much. I don't think we saw much more volume out of there, did we, Dave?
No, and like your comment, the curbside collection picked up coming down that road.
It did.
As soon as we got rid of the dumpsters, we went from picking up a dozen homes coming down to picking up, 3 dozen, because everybody was just dumping out at the end of the road in the dumpsters. They were doing
and when the summer people, we have summer people that stay all summer. They're here. They're And what they put in those dumpsters, plants, big plants, just throw them in, dirt and all. I don't know. I just couldn't believe it. You know, it's just weird. It's weird. Sorry. Ugh, I don't know what they're doing now.
So anything else with Casella? We've got a long time. Appreciate their patience and certainly their time and the information. I don't want to keep them any longer.
So much fun talking about trash. Huh?
Talking trash.
Talking trash.
Okay, well, I just want to thank all of you for certainly your time, your information. Look forward to working with you on some of these great ideas, and certainly we'll be in touch. I will get in touch with the schools and see what can happen there. And
I can help you do that, Grace.
yeah, sure thing.
Yeah.
So I guess the committee really kind of needs to decide on some next steps. I know we also had on here reporting out on there's no such thing as a way. I did get the PowerPoint from that session. I forget who else went to that. You, Susan, I think went. I can share that around with the committee, and basically it's more information about just any type of let's say reduce, reuse, recycle, compost, waste to energy, and then landfill is at the bottom of the list. So I think we've talked about these. A number of us have been to some of the other adult ed sessions as well, but I'll be sure to send this PowerPoint around for people to read through that information also.
I think that PowerPoint was the most informative thing, was about the landfills filling up and, you know, the waste that they burn, you know, into really small amounts and how they do that. But it's frightening what's happening with landfills. And it's just, it was an awareness for me in terms of that.
Yeah. Okay. So if I send that around, I think that takes care of that item. Discussion of next steps.
We need to set the next meeting date, and maybe that's the agenda, to come forward with our suggestions on where to go.
And I know we've said the third Thursday, but I'm wondering if we could instead maybe do the week before that, March 10th. The third Thursday would be March 17th.
10th is good for me.
Would March 10th be okay? So it's a little sooner.
No, 10th is fine.
Sorry. What was that date?
Does March 10th, I didn't look at the town calendar. I don't know what the budget committee meetings, I know you have a lot of meetings coming up, select board budget.
You know, the budget meetings are all either Mondays or Tuesdays, so.
So would March 10th work for, I probably have another conflict on the 17th. I had one tonight. I actually was supposed to be in 3 places at once, but we all know what that's like, right? But this was important, and I'd like to avoid another one of those conflicts if I could. And I'd also like to get going on some concrete ideas and next steps sooner, especially if we are trying to do something with schools, maybe Earth Day, start getting some sort of ideas of a flyer and recommendations to the select board, and maybe talking some specifics about what kinds of bins or things we might want to move in that direction. Is that okay to aim for the 10th?
I'm not here that week. I'm going to be out of state for that week.
Okay, well then that would not be good, because I think we probably need you here, right? All right.
Get up. I mean,
What if we did the 25th?
25th.
I'm sorry, the 24th.
okay. Is that going to give us enough
Yeah.
time to do things?
No, the 24th of March.
Right.
It's Earth Day, isn't it, in April?
April is Earth Day, right? So if we think that we can still get things moving along, if we're meeting later rather than sooner, that's my concern, is to try to start doing some of these these things, but we'd have to talk about them first before we actually.
I'm willing to work with Kathy, and I'm sure Nathan will, on bringing something in on that meeting.
That's a good idea.
But I mean, that's sort of an aside, though. I think what the committee is, and I think it's a great thing, but I think the committee is trying to come up with a set of recommendations for the Board of Selectmen, but I don't see any reason why we can't do this too. I mean, this is something the town can do. So we could come in with something to propose to you.
That sounds really good to me.
Okay.
And I can go over to the school. I mean, I can go over to the school anytime and talk to, I can talk to Beth Peavy, the principal there, and Randy, maybe just feel them out if that's okay. They'd be interested in any ideas. And I'm sure the teachers do anyway, but if that would be, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, great.
I could do that part.
Okay, so March 24th, is that okay with everyone? Okay,
Madam Chair, I checked the town calendar, the 10th and the 24th are both fine for meetings.
okay, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we'll go with the 24th, because I think we need Nathan to be able to attend, assuming he wants to attend, right, Nathan?
Oh, yeah, it's all good.
All right. Okay. So I guess that would be next steps, next meeting. Public comment. I don't know that there was any public. I can hear there's some public downstairs in my house listening, but I don't know if he's got anything to add. Okay. Well, again, thank you, everybody. This was great to cover a lot of ground this evening and feel like there's some movement forward coming soon. And again, I think the best news of the night is that we were already doing a pretty good job of recycling, but we can do better. So I look forward to being sure that our community is doing more in that capacity. Anything else from anyone? Karen, are you all set with lots of notes, I'm sure?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
I would like to say, I looked up the Brute container, and at the depot, they're $72 for a 50-gallon blue.
Okay.
So just something to think about. I almost pulled the trigger on it, but I'm going to do a little more research because I need a new bin.
Are the lids attached on those, or Don? Are
They are.
Yeah, they are.
And they're in stock in Wyndham, or you can go, Amazon has them. I got a tip here from the videographer, so yeah.
I think if we're gonna ask the taxpayers to buy these from us, we should go with the totes that Pine Tree has, the really heavy ones. We've actually hit them with a plow truck and picked them up, and they survived the hit. I don't, those ones from Home Depot, I just don't think are gonna hold up, Don.
Well, this is the Brute brand. Maybe I'm not looking at the right thing. That's what they mentioned. So we'll get with Dave and or Aaron or somebody and tell us what we should get, what we should recommend. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
I'm online right now just so that I can use my computer at the same time.
We all set?
I've got another meeting.
If there's nothing else, take a motion to adjourn.
And
Motion
thank you,
to adjourn.
Casella. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody from Casella. Appreciate you showing up.
Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Also, the